I am ranking every weapon in Roblox Rivals so you poor souls don't have to waste your keys on something buns. Today is episode 1 of 4 where we will be reviewing the primaries. If I do not get cancelled by any of the jokes made in this series, I will do a skin case giveaway at the end, but I'm gonna be honest, that is a big if. Let's begin! Firstly, the assault rifle. This requires no explanation from me, as it's free. This is good because even if you have less money than Diddy, after a 2-for-1 deal on baby oil, you can still use this weapon. It's probably the best all-round gun in the game, good at all ranges, and does big damage when you land your shot. There is a reason why it is probably the most used weapon in the game, and I'll be honest, that is because it's free. However, just because it is free doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, it's one of the very best weapons in the game, so it has to go straight into GOATed. Now, the bow is interesting because if you have the mental capacity to use it well, it is very underrated. However, the problem is most Rivals players spend their free time licking shoulders, so a lot of people don't use it well. It only costs 15 keys, which admittedly is still more than what your mother sold you for as a child, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very reasonable. For me, I see it as a lesser version of the sniper. It's a lot cheaper, but doesn't do that much less damage when landing headshots. Definitely not a good pick for the majority of people though, but for those who can point and click with reasonable accuracy, this is a thoroughly functional weapon. Next is the burst rifle, which the sweaty nerds will tell you over and over and over again is the best weapon in the game. Now usually, as you may be able to tell, I'm not one to go starting arguments. I'm a very polite person and I'm going to very politely suggest that more information is required there. And could they also consider investing a portion of their oh so valuable time into a bit of personal hygiene? God damn! The burst may well be the best weapon if your aim is so good that you can consistently hit nothing but headshots. If, like me, your aim takes a second or so to adjust to a head, this weapon ain't for you, as by the time you actually find your target, the bullets have stopped firing. Personally, I think half of the hype around this weapon is people trying to be quirky and original, but as this is a professional and objective review, I'll accept that the other half has a valid point, in that if you do land headshot, this thing cooks. Meaning, I've probably got to put it in pretty saucy. Oh good lord, here we go, the crossbow. I think I am right in saying this weapon is used exclusively by buck-toothed, snotty-nosed 10-year-olds playing on an iPad with auto-fire and aim assist turned up to the max. I truthfully have never played against somebody using this weapon who is actually pulling the trigger themselves, and that is because if your reflexes aren't faster than that with a cat on steroids, it's completely useless. I get that it's a no-scope version of the sniper, and that's actually a really cool concept, but it seems Nosny forgot that he gave mobile players hacks. I can simply boil this down into an easy summary. If you play Rivals, this thing is buns, but if you watch while Rivals plays itself on your iPad, the crossbow is quite OP. However, I like having the moral high ground. Cheeks! The energy rifle is also buns, but for a different reason. This thing costs 425 keys and does 20 damage. How does that make sense?
Oh, but Dub, it has unlimited ammo and can shoot off walls.
I don't care! I'm not trying to shoot walls, I'm trying to shoot people. So explain to me why I need to take out a mortgage to do less damage per second than a damn handgun. It is very rare in this series for me to give blatant advice, because as you can clearly see from the gameplay, I am in no way a pro, but please, to the good Lord up above, do not buy this weapon. If you've already bought it, I apologise, you ain't never seeing those keys again. The only thing I can offer in return is putting this abomination straight into cheeks. Haha, yes, the Flamethrower, favourite weapon of rats and scumbags all over the world. Should you ever find yourself in a sewer, make sure you bring some smoke grenades, because that place will be full of Rivals players who can't aim, so use the Flamethrower. Now, admittedly, I'm not ranking the people who use the weapon, so I will have to play devil's advocate here and say that this thing is unfairly efficient against probably 90% of players. If you truly have no regard for being a valuable member of society, the Flamethrower might be worth the hefty price of 400 keys, but even I, who truly has no morals at all, only use this against the equally ratty medkit players. Because if you use this against somebody playing the game properly, well, let's just say that would probably be the only time I condone assault and battery. I need to be careful with my words here, because if it sounds like I'm encouraging it too much, I may end up shaking hands with Tupac and the Queen in the Great Lobby in the Sky, but I'm going to go straight down the middle and call this thing functional. The grenade launcher is fantastic, genuinely a terrific weapon, and that's because you need it to get the glass wrap. As soon as you have the glass wrap, it becomes about as useful as a pork sandwich at a Jewish picnic. I'm sure some TikTok editor will argue their case, saying it's good for movement, but you know what else is good for movement? The battle axe, the grenade, the chainsaw, the scythe, the trip man, the fist, the jump pad, the satchel, and the warhorn. And you know what makes them better for movement? They aren't primaries. You can have these as well as a primary that is capable of doing damage. I really hope that I've made my point well enough, but just in case, let me spell it out for you. Just because it can be used for movement doesn't mean it's a good weapon. Your primary should always be for damage, and with all due respect, shut your face. Bin fodder, no denying it. Now the Gunblade is an interesting one. For a while it was very much like the Flamethrower in the sense that you could only use it if your parent left you in a box at the side of the motorway. However, as far as I'm aware, it got nerfed, at least I think it did, because you don't really see people using it anymore. It's a cool idea, sort of. A gun that can shoot and do melee damage is actually pretty awesome, but my issue with it is that you can only do one or the other. Without wishing to ask for the world, I'd quite like my primary weapon not to be some kind of botched YouTube challenge where you have to alternate between melee and range. I don't know, it's a bit crazy. I don't really have any more jokes for this one. It's going in bin fodder, but because I'm such a nice guy, I will give you my backup joke from that whole grenade launcher one, in case the whole Jewish picnic thing was a bit much. It still applies to the Gunblade though, as this too is about as useful as a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. Just know, I did have all the jokes, but then we wouldn't be doing the giveaway, as I would have 100% been cancelled. The minigun. Well, it was good back when there were only about 5 weapons in the game, but since then, I feel it's kind of been left behind. I'm not denying that it does pretty good damage, but there are now so many ways to counter it, I feel like it's not really worth using at this point. What I will say in its defense though is when you find somebody who can't counter it, they will get so angry, and that is funny. But the fact that the movement is so bad, it really kills it for me. As I say, it used to be good, which is why it costs 450 keys, but I actually think that gifting your money to that one e-girl who is definitely a 50-year-old man would be a better way of spending it than buying the minigun. It isn't a weapon that anybody uses unironically anymore, so don't buy it for the 3rd time in a row. Bin fodder. Finally breaking the streak of Bun's weapons, the paintball gun is next. I see this as a combination between the burst and the regular assault rifle. It does very good damage per second if your aim is good, but there is a little more allowance for error like with the AR, as you can correct your aim without having to stop and reload. I'm going to be real with you, you may need to sell a kidney to afford the 475 key price. However, if you are a genuinely good player, it will be worth it. If you're an average player, there won't be much difference between this and the assault rifle, as the mag is a lot smaller and the reloads are a lot slower, but one bonus is that this thing literally spawns in cope, as every opponent will call you pay to win, which again is funny. Now, I'm not liable if you have to evade taxes or get into organised crime to pay for this, but it's probably worth it, so I'm just going to put it as saucy. I'll tell you what isn't saucy though, the RPG. I'll come right out and say that it is bad, but still people use it, and that annoys me. Now, I don't have the time or the crayons to explain this to the people who actually use it, but hopefully you intellectual superiors will enjoy it anyway. Here's what happens, a noob gets beaten by a slightly better noob using RPG. They then become eternally convinced that it's the best weapon ever, and proceed to religiously use it themselves. We are truly talking about the type of people who could hide their own Easter eggs, because it's not the weapon that is good, it's the people who die to it that are just incredibly bad. I had a good few jokes to make about people being stupid, many of which I couldn't use, but I will say that if you use the RPG, the wheel is spinning but the hamster is dead. You are probably about as sharp as a bowl of jelly, you are more filling than tooth, and you may be window licker of the year. Thank you, Sheiks. Probably the most forgettable primary, this shotgun has Very few friends, but very few enemies. If it was a curry, it would be a korma, which I've been very negative today. So at least a korma tastes nice, even if it's a bit basic. It only costs 20 keys, which is pretty cheap, and is a perfectly adequate short-range primary. It's not commonly used because if your opponent isn't just standing right in front of you, your main weapon is basically useless. But if you use a shotgun thinking it's going to counter sniper, you can't really hold that against the weapon. It's the physical manifestation of the phrase, sure thing buddy, but that's not always the end of the world. I'm going to place it in functional. Finally, the sniper. Without wishing to get too French, it is the creme de la creme of weapons. You can't find a single decent Rivals player who doesn't like the sniper, because even if you die to it, it's probably because the other player was better. I'm not getting into the whole auto-fire thing again, we've done that, let's just enjoy the moan, alright? It's a reasonably prized item, 70 keys I think, and even if you are like me and aren't incredible at sniping, there is still no denying that it is fun to use. Something so satisfying about just popping off a lucky shot and seeing it deal 150 damage. One of the only real skill-based weapons in the game. If you don't like it, I hate to tell you, but you're buns. Don't shoot the messenger, certifiably goated. That is all the primaries reviewed. Make sure to like this video and subscribe not to miss the next part. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you want to learn some secret strategies that pros don't want you to know, do watch this video on screen right now. Bon voyage, my old cream cracker.